Hello everyone, welcome to the Tim Booker channel. I wish you all a pleasant listening experience. The book we're going to interpret today is called The Gray Rhino. This book spans 303 pages, and I'll delve into its essence. It's a book that aids in raising our awareness of risks. The author, Michele Wucker, is a female writer. Within this book, she introduces a novel concept called the Gray Rhino. So, what does a gray rhino signify, and how should we address such occurrences? Let me discuss the content of this book from two perspectives. The first part focuses on explaining what the gray rhino theory is and its 5 stages. The second part details specific methods to deal with these situations. Firstly, what does the term gray rhino imply? In a previous book we discussed, titled The Black Swan, the author mentioned the concept of a black swan, referring to events of low probability, high risk, and complete unpredictability, such as terrorist attacks, tsunamis in Southeast Asia, the 9/11 incident, or the sinking of the Titanic. These occurrences happen suddenly and inexplicably, causing immense harm once they unfold. The author advised vigilance towards these black swan events, even though they cannot be predicted in advance. One must prepare mentally and take necessary emergency measures to prevent panic in case such an event occurs. Moreover, towards the end of that book, the author boldly made a prediction that the mention of the black swan theory would inevitably lead someone to propose a white swan theory. As expected, Michele Wucker, the author of this book, did just that. However, instead of using the term white swan, she coined a new phrase, gray rhino. She refers to events with high probability that cause significant damage, emphasizing the importance of reacting immediately when faced with an imminent threat. Much like encountering a charging rhinoceros in a field nearby, it's crucial to take action either by running or defending oneself with a gun. At this point, why fear the black swan that might be far away? In essence, the author advocates focusing on preventing clearly visible and foreseeable risks. For instance, despite clear weather forecasts and local warnings about an upcoming hurricane or storm, many people disregard these risks, believing it doesn't concern them. Consequently, casualties occur whenever there's a storm or hurricane globally. If people had a bit more risk awareness and took precautionary measures, seeking shelter beforehand, these disasters might not claim as many lives. Similarly, numerous bankers, having experienced the subprime mortgage crisis and barely survived bankruptcy, continue to provide mortgages to individuals with poor credit and engage in obviously risky investments until the next crisis hits. Only then do they pause for a while before repeating the same mistakes. Likewise, certain officials knowingly ignore the poor quality of bridges with visible cracks, waiting for incidents and casualties before taking action to repair them. Moreover, some established figures in companies or nations, fully aware of their limited time, refuse to relinquish power and guide the country or organization towards destruction, rather than passing on the reins to the younger generation. These examples are abundant, and the author contends that most of the time, it's not that we don't see the danger. Rather, we knowingly ignore it, akin to seeing a charging rhino and merely standing still, waiting to be knocked over. This, in essence, represents what the author refers to as a gray rhino-style crisis. The author divides people's responses to the gray rhino crisis into 5 stages. Let's examine what each represents. The first stage is denial, where individuals refute signals of warning for various reasons. It's the phase of not believing bad news and rejecting it outright. Why do we habitually deny the existence of a crisis? There are primarily 2 reasons. Firstly, humans tend to be excessively optimistic about the future. Studies show that most people overestimate their likelihood of success in their respective fields. They often envision their future selves as boundlessly promising, believing that everything they desire will come true, and they'll become what they imagine. This overly optimistic attitude is prevalent among younger demographics, Parents, too, tend to overestimate their children's talents, perceiving them as once-in-a-lifetime prodigies, setting unrealistic standards from an early age. People also tend to be overly optimistic about their lifespans, often estimating an additional 20 years in their calculations. Generally, when faced with unpleasant circumstances, people habitually invest hope in the future, adopting a blindly optimistic attitude, leading to denial when confronted with a crisis. Secondly, denial is a primitive self-preservation mechanism. It helps us not immediately collapse when facing a crisis, buying us time to accept reality. Often, denial helps us focus on resolving current issues until we have sufficient time to adapt to the unpleasant situation at hand. This represents the first stage of people's response to a crisis denial. Lastly, we move into the second stage, termed muddling through. As dangers become increasingly urgent, people habitually behave like ostriches, burying their heads in the sand, pretending not to see or care. They hope the crisis will naturally dissipate in the future. People repeatedly choose the discomfort of avoiding problem solving by finding various reasons to delay confronting the issue. For instance, reasons might include lack of budget, low political feasibility, or a sense of indifference toward the situation. Such excuses are prevalent in businesses, government agencies, personal lives, and the financial sector. The author lists several reasons for this habitual muddling through. 1. Inefficient governance in the United States with severe structural deficiencies, limited human and financial resources. Focusing more on addressing sudden crises rather than significant yet non-urgent ones. 2. Cognitive shortcomings, such as insufficient assessment of crisis severity, misinterpretation of crises, and a lack of motivation to take action based on effective information. 3. The perpetual struggle between immediate small losses and future significant losses. Most individuals find it challenging to make rational judgments in weighing the pros and cons. For instance, when asked if they'd kill one person to save many lives, most individuals find it immensely difficult to answer or prefer not to. 4. The tendency to muddle through is further ingrained due to a cultural mindset that expects crises to naturally resolve themselves at the last moment. Many Hollywood movies depict protagonists finding a way to reverse dire situations in the 11th hour, fostering a belief that crises naturally find resolution when they reach a critical juncture. However, movies are just movies and not reflections of reality. California, where Hollywood is situated, faces numerous real crises such as water scarcity, housing shortages, fiscal chaos, and growing wealth disparities. These issues demand practical solutions, but unlike in movies, there's no inherent resolution. The city's conditions are worsening, which reflects the real consequences of dodging and expecting problems to resolve themselves. These reasons collectively lead us to evade and muddle through issues, waiting for them to miraculously solve themselves. After passing this stage, we move into the third stage, termed diagnostic delay. In this phase, decision makers acknowledge an impending danger, but struggle to differentiate which crisis to address first. They waste significant time contemplating the right course, engaging in self-doubt, and hesitating to take prompt action. It's akin to someone facing a charging rhinoceros, meticulously analyzing whether to leap left or right, and eventually getting knocked down while overthinking. While deliberation in decision-making seems commendable, the author points out that excessive contemplation generates immense opportunity costs. For instance, in healthcare, delaying preventive measures that could be resolved inexpensively leads to productivity losses amounting to $260 billion annually. The American Health Trust estimates that investing $10 per person in healthcare could generate savings exceeding $18 billion over the next 10 to 20 years, not accounting for gains in workforce productivity and quality of life. In the 2008 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve's records reveal delays in action due to an emphasis on past inflation during similar crises. Rather Then addressing signals like rising unemployment rates and major investment bank collapses. The Fed was trapped in a gradualist mindset, fearing accusations of inflating financial bubbles again, hindering acceptance of new information. When people acknowledge the existence of danger, various factors obstruct timely action and resolution. One significant barrier emerges when there's no clear-cut solution that doesn't involve substantial costs. For instance, global climate change and associated disasters have been acknowledged as critical crises, requiring joint efforts from developed and developing nations. However, due to the absence of a cost-free resolution, the efficiency of global actions has been significantly low. Once past the third stage, we enter the fourth stage, panic, when the crisis looms imminently, akin to a rhinoceros at arm's length. The typical response during this time is panic. Under intense pressure, our brains operate at heightened speeds, memory improves, and senses sharpen. However, this phase may overlook essential information. While some can manage their emotions and respond calmly amid panic, others make worse decisions, completely abandoning self-rescue or resorting to antisocial behavior, putting themselves in more unpredictable danger. For example, reactions to the Ebola virus epitomize this situation. A doctor who treated Ebola patients in Libya found people in New York excessively panicking upon his return. Media descriptions exacerbated the situation, and despite the virus not being transmitted through casual contact or the air, the fear persisted due to ignorance or deliberate neglect of this basic fact. Overall, panic magnifies initial small problems into catastrophes, reverting to the initial stages of denial and resistance, hindering the resolution of actual problems. After the fourth stage, we progress into the final stage, either hasty action or self-collapse. While actions at this point may yield some effect, they often come too late and entail certain losses. Frequently, operating within this realm results in enormous resource wastage. In summary, the author presents the stages of addressing Gray Rhino events: denial, muddling through, quarreling, panic, and either hasty action or self-collapse. They argue that if our cognitive and preventative abilities regarding disasters remain inadequate, we'll be helpless when faced with calamities. Recognizing our blind spots, frequently examining our ingrained thought patterns, establishing robust warning systems, and setting response mechanisms are crucial steps toward timely recognition of charging gray rhinos. The author presents a set of strategies called Gray Rhino Hunting Guide to address gray rhino events. Let's delve into the specifics. Firstly, acknowledging the crisis's presence and preparing in advance is crucial. Identifying factors affecting our cognition promptly, especially while making decisions, demands openness, welcoming diverse opinions and viewpoints. Secondly, accurately defining the nature of gray rhino events involves categorizing each crisis, determining their urgency, and resolving them at their specific locations. Thirdly, refraining from standing still is imperative. Crafting and resolutely executing plans, and if incapable of making significant changes, initiating action through smaller, feasible measures like buckling up before driving or purchasing insurance. Fourthly, not squandering crises is essential. Recognizing that our cognitive inclinations usually drive us toward profitable actions, rather than merely avoiding problems, is crucial. Acknowledging the uniqueness of crisis issues and facing them as opportunities rather than just threats is pivotal. Fifthly, staying ahead of the curve by observing and identifying crises as early as possible. This approach enables us to not only observe the crisis's approach, but also make the right choices and take appropriate actions promptly. In essence, gray rhino events signify highly probable and impactful occurrences. Timely responses minimize losses. The best way to evade the crisis's intrusion is by transcending the panic phase, transforming denial and resistance into acceptance of the crisis, and converting procrastination into proactive action. This book concludes here. In simple terms, the author alerts us to be wary of significant yet non-urgent crises. The author, Michele Wucker, holds roles at the New York International Policy Institute and is Deputy Director of Global Affairs Research at the Chicago Council. Although she's inclined toward strategic planning, it's not as challenging as perceived. It involves problem solving, akin to steering a ship adjusting course based on problems encountered. However, the gap between ideas and execution is substantial. Most matters are more complex than conceived, leading to unforeseeable consequences. Addressing significant problems demands considering their multifaceted nature and the subsequent cascading issues they may spawn. It's not a matter of a few simple steps. The complexity is inherent in these substantial issues. Nonetheless, raising awareness about risks and taking early preventive action to avert unnecessary losses is always prudent. This book ends here. Congratulations on completing yet another book. Thank you all for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share this valuable knowledge with friends. Let's combine wisdom and practice to achieve our financial goals and create a better future. Thank you all. Goodbye.